Secondly, the mentioned people in Izorod did not become from so-called ancestors. They did not get their name from them, but vice versa. The names of the ancestors were created from the names of already existing people. When we talk about ancestors, we talk indirectly about nations. The time of life of each of the ancestors given in the Jewish times is too late, since all the major historical people were very well known much earlier. For example, the birth of Japhet is placed in 2394 before Christ. At that time, the Japhetic people occupied 2/3 of Europe and Asia Minor. Third, Izorod was not written in time of Moses, but only the 7th century BC. The people and their spatial distribution, which are located in Izorod, correspond to the real situation as it was in 7th century BC, according to their distribution by country, not by kinship. Thus, we have the case that one and the same people are mentioned under several names, and people of completely different origins are presented as relatives, just because they are neighbors or located in certain areas. In the case of the depiction of Nimrod and his works, it follows that he was only depicted from Cush and on another occasion from Sam. Such in the case and with people of Havilah, mentioned once in land of Semites and second time in land of Hamites, and in a third time in the land of Japhetites. As for the Serbs, they are in Izorod Japhetites. In fact, Japhet represents the Serbs. But Serbs are both among the Hamites and among the Semites, which completely destroys the theory of racial division of these three groups of people. The discovered Assyrian records make it possible to accurately date certain events from Izorod and confirm that the material for Izorod was taken from Assyria. The Assyrian writings contain the confirmation of the prophet Ezekiel regarding Gog, the king of Magog. Namely, the emperor Assurbanipal fought in middle of the 7th century BC with god king Saka, who captured his 2 sons. The Saki were people from Central Asia who were considered by the ancient writers to be Scythians, by which they meant most of the Central Asian people. Saki was also called Mesageti after their land, Massagetia, and hence Ezekiel's name Magog, Massagog. The descendants of Noah's 3 sons are located mainly on 3 great continents. Sem is Asia, Ham is Africa, and Japhet is Europe. Josephus says, "The sons of Japhet inhabited Europe as far as Gibraltar and in places not yet inhabited." Saint Jerome says, "Japhet, son of Noah, had several sons who owned land in Asia from the river Aman and mountain Taura and circle of Syria and mountain Cilicia to the river Don and in Europe all the way to Gibraltar. Japhet has 7 sons and they are Homer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Mesherich, and Teiras. Two of the sons of Japhet, Gomer and Javan, have descendants. Gomer's sons were Ashkenaz, Rifat, and Togarma. Javan's sons were Elisha, Tarsis, Hetim, and Rodanim. Then in Izorod is written, "From them are inhabited the islands of the nations, according to their lands, according to language of each of them, according to their tribes, and according to their people. The sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Then Cush's 5 sons and 2 grandchildren are mentioned." We saw that the Noah's sons were Sem, Ham, and Japhet. Now the order turns, and it is first spoken about the youngest, Japhet, and his descendants as the most historically important group of people. Ham is presented as the second most important, and then before the presentation of Sam's descendants and before the presentation of all Ham's descendants, there is a talk of one historical figure who placed in front of more than half of the second and entire third group of people. Cush also gave birth to Nimrod. He is the one who began to be strong on earth. He was a giant hunter before the Eternal. That's why it is said, like Nimrod, a giant hunter before the Eternal. He ruled first over Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Kelen, and in land of Sennar. Out of this land came Ashur. He built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Ir, Kalach, and Resen. Between Nineveh and Kalach, this is a great city. And it says, they are the sons of Ham, according to their families, according to their languages, according to their lands, according to their nations. And the sons of Sem, the father of all sons of Heber, and the elder brother of Japhet, were also born. The sons of Sem, Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Aram had 4 sons, and Arphaxad had 1. Arphaxad's grandson is Heber, who is considered the ancestor of Jews. This presentation of the then known world, important nations and countries, is given in the shortest possible form. He is accurate and consistent. Only an understanding of the same is not readily available. It is even aggravated by the accumulated prejudice, so that even the best historians and those whom we rightly count among the best could not fully cope. For an example, we will cite 3 approaches to the ethnography of Israel by one of the better French historians, Alfred Maury, who says, the first paragraph, people or countries which represent these names should not be asked for much far from the land owned by Jews, as their knowledge of geography is quite limited. The Jews took over all this from Assyrians, who had very wide knowledge, not only of geography, but also of the distribution of certain people and tribes in Europe and Asia. Most of the listed people were even at least for a time part of the Assyrian Empire. Second paragraph. The kinship which Jews recognized among the known people must be taken by the fact that these people originally lived in the neighboring countries. Right, because he saw that the mentioned kinship is expressed more geographically than kinship. Maury's third position is this. Consideration of the various names given in the Bible to Japhet makes it possible to establish that, if not all of them, then at least the vast majority of people of this race were located in Caucasus. Although in a previous paragraph Maury sees the crucial role of geography in depicting peoples and countries, he returns to the established path of interpreting the ethnography of Israel expressed in the first paragraph, which is that these people or countries cannot be far from Palestine. So all the European countries and a few Asian ones rushed to the Caucasus as if those countries were lined up there. It is strange indeed that such a learned man could not comprehend all the absurdity of such settings. Philo of Alexandria explains that in Israel the origin of the people and their kinship are given differently. Although Philo was very well known as writer in Jewish history, few adopted his instructions. The Greeks have given us some older legends about the origin of the world and the human race that originated in Japhet. Japhet is represented in a battle with the sky and the giants called the Titans, so that Japhet is a Titan who was thrown into Tartarus together with Kronos. He is presented as son of Uranus and Earth, and his son Prometheus is given as the creator of humanity. Prometheus' wife is called Asia. Boschar says that Japhet is the god Poseidon, and Noah Saturn or Kronos. It's Japhet in Devonia mythology, represented as Poseidon or Neptune, the god of sea, because his descendants inhabited the islands. Not only Japhet and Noah, but every other person from Israel was personified with some special deity from old polytheistic belief. Let's take a look at 4 rivers of paradise from Israel. chapter number 2. Nowhere Philon's instruction of fourness was not as strongly expressed as in relation to these 4 rivers of paradise, on the banks of which a special enlightenment developed, and therefore they were different from other rivers. More important and holier they were. These are the Danube, the Nile, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. The Danube is the first place because the Danube was the cradle of the oldest and most important enlightenment. In fact, the 4 rivers of paradise are represented as 4 tributaries of the same Paradise River. The first tributary of the river of paradise is called Pishon, Danube, in Greek Phison, and this word implies gentleness. John Quito says that Pishon means stream, queen. The name can also mean river. It is said in Izorod, the river that covers the whole land of Havila, where gold was found. The other river of paradise is called Gihon, and it covers the whole land of Kush. The river Nile is extremely recognizable as Gihon. The third is the Hiddekel that flows in front of Asura. The Tiger River is immediately recognizable here as well. The fourth is the Prat River, which is the old name of the Euphrates. In fact, the Greeks made the Euphrates from the name Prat. As for the flood legends, there were more similar ones in Europe and Asia. The story of flood, which is found in Izorod, is taken from Assyria.